But your beloved Crystal Palace only went out there last night and did it, Simon. I mean, I took in a lot of the game, and it was a feisty old performance, and they didn't buckle against Manchester City. So now, as I said in the introduction, the lead having been 13 points for City at the top, the gap is now 4. And Bernardo Silva, speaking afterwards, said, well, could you really have expected anything else?
Well, we never had 12 points. We had 12 points because they had like two games in hand. Now we have 4, but they have 1 game in hand. We had very tough fixtures. If you look at our last fixtures, we're very tough. We play Tottenham, Man United, Everton away, Southampton away, Crystal Palace away. We're going to keep having difficult games. Still top of the league. I've said it before. They have to come to our stadium. We'll play them at home. But yeah, it's going to be exciting the last few games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty pragmatic way of looking at it, isn't it? There's not much else I can say.
Well, it's also a factual way of looking at it. Before Christmas, Liverpool went on a run where they lost a few games, drew a few games, and Manchester City took advantage of it by winning all their games. Now the reverse applies. Liverpool have won 8 games on the bounce. City have won 5, drawn 2 and lost 1. So there makes up the difference of some of the land grab back from Liverpool in terms of grabbing points back. People that were advocating that this was going to be run away with by Man City, well, OK, they had a point at the time, but they discounted the fact that teams don't win every single game. And Manchester City have gone on a run of taking 17 points 18 points, 17 points out of 8 games. I mean, it's still an incredible haul by average standards, but by Man City standards, it looks poor. Liverpool, on the flip side of that, have had... People will make an argument saying that Liverpool, well, hang on a second, they've done miraculously well because they didn't have half their players available, or their best players, let's say, their most effective players because of the African Cup of Nations. Yeah. Well, that's a bit of a misnomer because they only played 2 games in January when most of those players were away, and they were Brentford and Crystal Palace, games that they might have expected to win anyway, even with those players missing. So look, all things being equal, what it does is it makes it a compelling run-in. It is now only 2. We'd liked it to have been 3 or 4. We'd like to see Chelsea in the mix where it becomes a 3 or 4 tier race, but it is only 2. They are by far the best 2 teams in the country, and Man City are right. Palace, this is not a phenomenon. Palace do this to Man City quite regularly. They make them work very hard. Man City haven't scored against Palace this season. They've taken 4 points off them without City scoring a goal against them. They've been up to the Etihad in previous seasons and beaten them. They were lucky 2 or 3 years ago, Palace, not to have beaten them. I think they missed a penalty or something of that nature in the last minute of a game a couple of years ago. So Palace, whilst not a shoe-in to beat teams like Man City, of course not. Teams like Palace and Southampton, I don't think they've got the ability to overcome Man City and have got some formula. But I think they go in brave and strong, and Palace were brave and strong. They were battered. They rode their luck at times. Yeah. They were profligate at times, Man City, but Palace also had some good opportunities. Yes. You know, you'd expected more from Wilfried Zaha at times, but this was a good game. It was a really good 0-0 draw.
It was indeed. I thought Palace really showed themselves in a great light. The fans were magnificent last night, and you know them, Simon. You know what they're like.
I do.
Listen, is Vieira growing on you?
Well, you can't suggest anything otherwise, can you? I mean, look, he plays with a certain way of looking at the world. He plays as he played as a player, with a little fear. He believes, I suspect, that you live and die by your own accord, so you be definite in what you're doing rather than hedge. Right. Palace had a load of problems last year. In the media's mind, that there was this ageing squad that wasn't going to be replaced, and Vieira was going to come in and make a Horlicks of it. Now, I wasn't sure what he was going to do because it was not based upon his track record. You can't look at his track record at Nice, I think he was at, and also New York City, and say, well, there's a blueprint for a Premier League manager. You can look at the guy that learnt his trade and coaching at Man City and say, well, there's going to be some strong influences that come his way. You can look at the player and say, there's a man that played at a certain level, played with a certain outlook and disposition. Now, with all those things in mind, you can look at Palace's decision, having made an appointment before with Frank de Boer, which was a departure from their stocking trade of English managers that have got them out of trouble. Sam Allardyce, Alan Pardew, Tony Pulis. They've stayed with that model every time there's been trouble. Now, there could have been trouble this year, but they went brave because they obviously felt that Vieira had the chops for it. Now you've got a balanced squad. They've also changed their investment criteria. Palace have been fortunate enough to go and get another investor that's put 90 million quid in. That bought them a Swedish centre-half for 20 million quid. It bought them the boy from Celtic, Edouard, who's not featuring that much, but notwithstanding it, you look decent. And the boy that is shining through all of this is Conor Gallagher, a loan signing from Chelsea.
Superb. And he could have nicked it at the end as well for Palace.
Running the way he did at the 93rd minute with that level of intensity and fitness.
Absolutely, absolutely. One eyebrow raiser coming out of this one is that the same 11 that started for City
subs.
finished for City. Yeah. This was Pep on that afterwards.
I was thinking about that, to put Gabriel, Raj, Gundo, but the guys who are playing good. The game was in a high rhythm, and today I decided to continue with these guys. We were maybe not much brilliant up front, but it's because it's not easy. But in general, we did a really good game.
So, Simon, as an owner, you've watched on from distance. Yep. Do you think that the City hierarchy were thinking last night, okay, when's he going to put on Jesus? No. When's he going to put on Sterling?
No. God, no.
Is he not going to use Fernandinho?
How can we in one breath, right? The only way I would batter Pep Guardiola about lack of substitutions is because he's one of the loudest voice about 5. Right, that's the only way I'd batter him. But as far as getting anywhere near whiffing any decision-making process and questioning what he does, he's produced arguably the most complete football team that we've seen in this country for a significant amount of time, if ever. Right? They've won the Premier League, as many times as we can count over the last 5 or 6 years that he's been here. There's a distinct possibility they might win the Champions League this year. In which parallel universe does anybody get to turn around and question him about something as mundane as not putting a sub on in a game they've drawn 0-0? I find it difficult. I can't make an argument for anyone taking me seriously.
Better than that. But you're right. It's his prerogative.
I mean, it's totally. It's difficult to make a case. We live in a world like everyone else. Everyone's got backsides. Everyone's got opinions, right? The bottom line is that I find it difficult to make a case to be taken seriously. I got my head handed to me yesterday, metaphorically, by that guy from UFC because I wasn't a UFC fan.
Oh, Michael Bisping.
And
that was sensational.
He walks me through the errors of my ways, and I don't feel like making the same sin twice by suggesting that I know more than Pep Guardiola does about when he should make a sub.
Have you ever argued the case with someone, Simon, and in mid-argument he takes his right eye out? That was unusual yesterday.
that was a difficult one to odds.
Yes.
Trying to make sense of the suggestion that I might know more about him while he's poking his eye at me across the table led me to be more fearful of my own sort of mortality, given the fact he doesn't seem to be concerned about his eye coming out his hand.
I must admit, Michael Bisping and Simon Jordan, it was a great match-up yesterday, and Simon, my God, so many people
with Neil Warnock as the referee in the middle.
With Neil Warnock as the referee. You get everything here, and we're pleased about that. That's what seemingly pleases Mitchell White. Good morning, guys. I'm really looking forward to the show this morning.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSport app and on your smart speaker. TalkSport.